Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Today we have another fresh set of crazy revenge stories. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, leave comments so we know what kind of stories you love the most. And our first story. Thanks for the year of free rent in Brooklyn. So a friend and I move into this newly renovated apartment in Brooklyn. It's nice enough, but just about every one of the 14 units has some sort of weird problem. One unit had the hot and cold water mixed up, flush a few times to get a heated toilet. One unit, none of the outlets are grounded. One unit, there are gaps around the windows. The problem in our unit was a leak in the air conditioner lines. The leak was probably at the roof, but we ended up with no AC. We call them, and it takes a month to get someone. He refills the lines, and a week later, the problem comes back. We spent the summer getting the system topped up every week. At the end of the summer, they decided that our repairs and all of the neighbors were getting too expensive, so they send us the bills. Our bill was in the tens of thousands of dollars. Recharging that system weekly must have been expensive. They also start trying to charge every unit for any infraction, like $100 for every unit for a single scrap of paper found in the hall. The tenants all get together to have a little meeting. It turns out that they never got a certificate of occupancy for the building. The city had it on the books as a furniture warehouse. So collectively, we just all stopped paying them. Rent, fines, fees, nothing. We retain a lawyer and just live there. The company tried to get us out by cutting lighting and other services. We contact the lawyer, the company would get fined, and we get our lights back. They tried to change the main lock once, but we let the locksmith know what was going on, so he stopped. They tried to change the main lock once, but we let the locksmith know what was going on, so he stopped. They didn't try it a second time. The first floor of the building was an off-track betting parlor. They were particularly noisy and obnoxious, so one resident called the health department over a moldy loaf of bread we found in the basement. One of my best memories was watching a bunch of guys in hazmat suits clear out the betting parlor so they could run tests. Eventually, they tried to get the certificates, but to do that, they need to do an inspection with the drywall removed. They tried to do it while we lived there, and the lawyer fought it for not being in a livable state. Finally, they realized they needed us out. If they got the C of O while we were still there, we'd owe back rent. They take us to court to get an eviction. The lawyer gets everything pushed back as far as he can, but finally we go to city court. The lawyer points out that they're trying to evict 14 units, but you can't evict more than 10 at a time. Court rejects the case. I don't think their lawyer gets a single word in. So now we get a county court date for an ejection instead of an eviction. Again, the lawyer pushes it out as much as he can, but eventually we go. Court agrees to eject us all, but sees the evidence of lighting and lock tampering, asks our lawyers what would be a reasonable time frame. Lawyer asks for 4 months. Judge gives us 6. Everyone stays in until the last month. At the end of it all, we get to live in a newly renovated apartment in a trendy area of Brooklyn for free for a little over a year. This is the most New York story I've ever read. And our last story. Got pissy and damaged my car? Pay £2,000. I live in a Massey-net house in the UK, a 4 and a block, and the only parking is on the street. I recently got my license and put onto a parent's insurance to keep costs low. That's where the story starts. I have this neighbor who's an awful driver, crashed at least 2 cars, and also made a fly tip abandon rubbish in their gardens, blocking our fire escape. This is all relevant information. I parked my car outside one day on street parking, and she pulled up right behind me, blasted her horn, and started swearing at me to move out of her space. She opened my door and threatened to smash my car up. I locked my car and went inside, ignoring her. I looked out the window and she parked her car on my bumper, then placed another car she owns on my other bumper, causing slight paint damage and making sure I couldn't get to work the next day. This continued for a few weeks, her parking right on my car or parking her 2 cars over 4 spaces. Keep in mind I own my house and she rents hers, meaning we have parking rights over her due to having the parking passes. I had enough of this after a while. I ran the license plate for both of her cars through the website that tells you the MOT status of a vehicle. Car 1, MOT'd. Car 2, MOT expired. What this basically means is the car cannot be driven or even on public land, and I had the information I wanted. I called up the council, whose authority it is to report the car. I told them about an abandoned vehicle parked outside my house on restricted parking times. They got back to me and told me that they'd passed it on to the police. I then decided to phone her landlord about her fly tipping in the back garden. He came, spoke to me, and my parents investigated and put her lease into contest because she'd blocked our escape route and left the stuff abandoned. I kept calling about the car every day for about a month until one day she moved the car to another car park around the corner, again onto public land. I reported it again, this time with evidence it had moved. The council arrived that day and stuck a ticket on it saying that they were made aware the vehicle was abandoned and the owner had to contact them to get it moved. Today I woke up and saw a note taped on the car saying that the vehicle will be crushed in 7 days if she doesn't respond to them. And the car has an outstanding fine of £1,872, and it will increase if this action is taken, meaning she calls them or it gets crushed. Safe to say, I don't think she will damage my car or swear at me again. I also don't think in the future she'll ignore the council's calls for her to respond to them. I want to thank you all for watching the video to the end. I'll see you in the next one.